So a couple videos ago, I did a Majora's Mask theory that was really just a question to my fanbase on whether I should include Termina as legitimate Zelda lore for future videos. And you guys answered with a pretty resounding yes. Because of that answer, this video is made possible. So, I hope all of you watching this are excited for what I have to say, because after all, you were the inspiration. Isn't it great when you find something in a Zelda game that expounds on stuff from previous Zelda games? Just really makes the theorist in you happy, you know? Well, as many fans know by now, the most recent game, Breath of the Wild, is chock full of these kinds of Easter eggs and landmarks that sometimes very explicitly point towards the Zelda games that have been released previously, like the literal ruins of the ranch from Ocarina of Time that longtime fans will know as Lon Lon Ranch, or the Great Bridge of Hylia, which is in some places almost the spitting image of the Bridge of Hylia from Twilight Princess, or the Castletown Fountain that, again, is very closely resembling the Castletown Fountain from Twilight Princess, and perhaps even Ocarina of Time. But you have to ask the question, especially with a wild game like Breath of the Wild, how much of all of this stuff is, canon? Like, we know that at least more than 10,000 years have passed since the events that we're playing through in Breath of the Wild's present day. Think about that. That's older than the entire written history of humanity. So how could the Temple of Time still be standing, for instance? Is this literally the same temple from Ocarina of Time that was just kept up with all these years, or a different temple entirely that merely resembles the original one? In other words, is this stuff real or simply a shout out that's meant as sort of a fourth wall break, also known as an Easter egg, but isn't actually canon? The same goes for some of the DLC items obtained, like the Majora's Mask, or the Castle Town, or even this rock carving of Darmani, who is a Goron hero that hails from the mysterious land of Termina, which should have no connection to Hyrule's history here. But yet, like many other strange appearances in Breath of the Wild, here he stands. Well, due to the nature of this game and the lore behind Zelda, these questions can be answered using a lot of speculation. So let's speculate, why don't we? In the first place, I'd like to point out that I think some of these references are non-canon and some are canon, just to, make things a little more confusing. And I'm not gonna go over every single reference in Breath of the Wild that's iffy, but I will give a couple examples of the differences real quick. Let me put it this way. In Breath of the Wild, how much sense does it make for the Majora's Mask to be randomly found in a chest within some riverside ruins? I'm talking the Majora's Mask that's still glowing with power somehow, even after the events of the game Majora's Mask, where at the end, the mask is shown as powerless. That, to me, is an example of a simple Easter egg that doesn't affect Breath of the Wild canon. A non-Zelda example from another very recent and popular game would be this toad here trying to climb this wall from Paper Mario: The Origami King. What this toad says is a clear reference to Breath of the Wild, but does that mean that, this takes place in the same universe and Link and Zelda's descendants are somewhere out there? Or maybe that Zelda is a video game in the Mario universe that Toad plays all the time? Well, no, I think everyone agrees that this is an example of just a simple shout out or Easter egg and doesn't actually mean anything as far as lore is concerned. Some things in Breath of the Wild fall into this category, but others, in my opinion, can be considered actual canon depending on how you translate it. For instance, the Temple of Time is, in my opinion, the actual temple from Ocarina of Time. And sure, it may have just been kept up with all these years, but how can it be the same one if it's so far from the castle, you ask? Well, actually, if you're interested in my full theory that a lot of these land masses may have shifted around in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, check out the theory I did with Nintendo Black Crisis on Hyrule's moving castle. I'll link to it in the description below. Anyway, I tend to believe that when you have literal landmarks or land masses that are giant similarities or direct references to previous Zelda games, they're probably the real deal, like Death Mountain. I don't think there are multiple Death Mountains. I'm pretty sure that one there is the only one that's ever been. So, using my own sort of criteria for what is and is not canon in the game, what about this statue of Darmani? Canon or non-canon? And for those who are unfamiliar with who Darmani is, I'll summarize real quick. In the rather dark and depressing game Majora's Mask, Link travels to the mysterious land of Termina, and there meets several key characters who are all either dead or dying, so that he can get masks from them and use their powers to complete the temples of the game. Good stuff, but one of these dying characters is the beloved Goron hero Darmani, who Link finds as already having died, but struggling with the fact. So Link ends up healing Darmani's soul with the Song of Healing, which allows him to accept his death and move on. And then Link is able to grab Darmani's freshly made Goron mask. All well and good, but that happened within the land of Termina. And this statue here is in Hyrule. So, canon or non-canon? I say it's canon, because it's not the only statue in Goron City. There's also Daruk from this very game, who I'm pretty sure is canon, and the Goron Elder from Twilight Princess, who is definitely a part of Hyrule's history, carved into the very map of Breath of the Wild. So, logically speaking, if we dismissed the statue of Darmani, we'd have to dismiss the statue of Daruk as well, and claim that this literal section of Hyrule's map is non-canon, which we have no reason for doing. In my opinion, all of these statues were made by Gorons in reference to their legends and are canon. And yes, this has implications for the timeline placement, but I'm not talking about that in this video. If Darmani's statue is canon, that means that somehow these Hyrulean Gorons have actual memories and legends of the Terminian Gorons. And this is impossible since Termina is an alternate reality, right? I mean, it's not even the same world, right? Well, what if it's not another world at all, but rather just another land in the same world of Hyrule? Alright, fasten your seatbelts. It's about to get really good. Have you ever asked yourself why we assume Termina is a parallel world? Well, it's probably because of the 3D assets they used for their characters. Lots of them are the same ones from Ocarina of Time. And I'll admit, I used to assume it was a parallel world because of this too, pretty recently. But we can't do that because the only reason some of the assets from Ocarina of Time are used for some of the characters is because Majora's Mask was a rushed title that Nintendo wanted to release before the announcement of the GameCube. Reusing assets for this was completely understandable. And I mean, it's not like they didn't also include several completely original characters in the game, like Tingle by the way, which wouldn't be possible if it was an actual parallel world. There are also no parallel landmarks anywhere. Termina Field is nothing like Hyrule Field, for instance. An example of an actual parallel world would be Lorule from A Link Between Worlds, which mimics the exact map and landmarks of Hyrule from A Link to the Past. So am I saying that since Termina is not a different world at all, it actually exists in the same world, just physically removed from Hyrule by some great distance? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Now to prove it, let's take a look at how Link enters Termina. Yes, it's a trippy fall down a hollowed out tree that feels very much like a portal, but that's just it. I do believe it is a portal that's no different than the other portals already present in the woods. Look, the Lost Woods is a magical place where people can literally infinitely get turned around and around and around until they're lost forever, and even sometimes turn into monsters. And it's also a place where literal magical portals link to places like Goron City and Zora's Domain. So why not also a portal that links to Termina, a place just as physically real as Goron City or Zora's Domain? And as far as the theory that Termina is not physically real and simply a creation of the power of Majora, how then does it still exist after Majora's defeat and removal of power at the end of the game? Shouldn't the world have immediately crumbled into non-existence like Koholint Island did when the Windfish woke up? There are even some evidences of possible Majora influence bleeding over into Hyrule's history, like the well-known eyes on Midna's fused shadow helmet thing, or Twilight Princess Ganondorf's original armor design. These design choices have led many to believe that the creators of the fused shadow, also known as the Interlopers, and the ancient tribe that created the Majora's Mask could possibly be one and the same. And I'm not going to go into that anymore, but if that's true, it would obviously mean Termina is a real place, accessible from the Lost Woods. Furthermore, in a land that features no landmarks from Hyrule, why would a Goron directly reference Hyrule's Dodongo's Cavern from Ocarina of Time? Unless they do exist in the same world and that's the actual Dodongo's Cavern they're referencing. The final piece of evidence for Termina's existence is the Darmani sculpture. Since it's made from the minds of Gorons and Gorons are canon, that has to mean that not only is Termina an actual real place, but the Gorons from Termina either in part or wholly came over at some point to join their Hyrulean brothers. Maybe they even came through the Lost Woods portals, who knows? And when they arrived, their histories and legends now became one and the same. Either way, I believe that's the story behind this statue. I believe it proves that Termina is a real place. And that is just my theory. But what did you guys think? You think I'm onto something? Or is this literally a non-canon piece of rock that doesn't actually exist? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow and leaving a like to help the video grow. As always, huge thanks goes to all of my amazing supporters. Introducing several new names. Say hello to Justin L, Josh A, Puppet of Fate, Luna Hellweg, and Michael G, who all decided to become my elite crew and support the channel. If you're interested in getting your name up here at the end of each of my videos and helping my next video come to life, check out that join button located below this video or the links in the description below. Also down there are of course the links to my social media pages, so hey, come connect with me and say hi on Twitter. This is Masked Nintendo Bandit signing out and hoping that you have a great rest of your day. Peace!